I honestly never thought I'd be the guy posting on Reddit about his collapsing marriage, but here we are. I'm 34M, my wife is 32F, and we've been married for 6 years together for almost 10. We used to be the couple everyone envied. Same dumb sense of humor, same taste in movies, same plans for the future. We bought a house 2 years ago, adopted a dog, talked about kids constantly. At least I thought we did. If I'm being real, the problems started months before I admitted them to myself. It wasn't one huge thing at first. Just tiny cracks that slowly turned into something ugly. She became mean. Like, weirdly mean. Not all the time. That's what messed with my head. One day she'd curl up next to me on the couch and ask me to rub her back. The next day she'd snap at me because I bought the wrong brand of coffee and act like I ruined her life. She also started lying about stupid things. Tiny, pointless lies. Like saying she worked late, then I'd see from our Ring camera she'd been home for almost an hour sitting in her car before walking inside. Or she'd tell me she went to dinner with her friend Amanda, but Amanda's Instagram story showed she was out of town. When I'd ask about it, my wife would immediately get defensive. Why are you interrogating me? You're paranoid. You always make everything weird. That became her favorite phrase, you make everything weird. Eventually I stopped asking questions because every conversation somehow became my fault. Then her phone basically became another limb. Face down constantly. Changed password. Took it into the shower. Slept with it under her pillow like it contained nuclear launch codes. Again, every time I brought it up, she'd explode. One night I woke up around 2 a.m. and noticed she wasn't in bed. I found her downstairs sitting in complete darkness at the kitchen table, texting someone while smiling. The second she saw me, her face changed instantly. I still remember it. Like I had caught her doing something illegal. She locked the phone and immediately went. Why are you sneaking up on me like a psycho? I literally had just walked downstairs half asleep. I apologized. Which now makes me feel pathetic. A week later she suddenly started going to the gym after work. This woman hated gyms our entire relationship. Suddenly she was going 6 days a week, buying expensive matching outfits, wearing perfume to work out, and coming home 2 hours later smelling like men's cologne mixed with her shampoo. I noticed other things too. She stopped touching me. Stopped saying, I love you, first. Stopped talking about the future. But she started picking fights over everything. If I loaded the dishwasher wrong. Fight. If I asked how her day was. Fight. If I wanted to spend time together. Somehow also a fight. It felt like she hated me but didn't want to officially say it. The thing that really got under my skin happened during my brother's birthday dinner. She disappeared for almost 40 minutes. When she came back, her lipstick was smeared and she looked irritated instead of embarrassed. I quietly asked where she'd been. And she snapped right there at the table. In the bathroom. Jesus Christ. My brother gave me this awkward look like even he didn't believe her. Later that night, while she was in the shower, her phone lit up on the nightstand. I wasn't even trying to snoop. But I saw the preview notification. Miss you already. No name. Just a heart emoji beside the number. My stomach dropped so hard I thought I might actually throw up. And the worst part? When she came out of the shower, I asked calmly who it was. She didn't panic. She didn't even hesitate. She rolled her eyes and said, "It's Amanda. Grow up." Then she grabbed the phone, deleted the message in front of me, and acted annoyed that I was upset. That was the exact moment something changed in me. Because deep down, I knew she was lying. I just didn't know yet how bad it really was. After that text message, I started noticing everything. And I mean everything. It's crazy how your brain works when trust starts dying. Suddenly every detail feels suspicious. Every late reply. Every smile at a phone screen. Every work emergency. For a while I kept trying to convince myself I was overreacting. Because nobody wants to believe their wife is cheating on them. Especially not when you've built your entire adult life around that person. But the lies kept stacking up. A few days after the Amanda text, my wife told me she had a last-minute overnight work trip to Chicago. She acted annoyed while packing, like it was such an inconvenience. Can you not make this harder than it already is? She snapped while throwing clothes into a bag. I literally hadn't said anything. That's how tense things had become. She was arguing with imaginary accusations before I even opened my mouth. Still, I kissed her goodbye and told her to drive safe. The second she left, something in my gut felt wrong. I can't explain it better than that. Just wrong. About an hour later, I realized she forgot her iPad on the couch. Normally I wouldn't touch it, but a notification popped up while I was walking past. Same heart emoji. My chest tightened instantly. The message preview only said, "Can't wait to have you all to myself tonight." I swear my hands actually started shaking. I opened the iPad. And there it was. Months of messages. Not just flirting. Full-on affair. His name was Eric. Apparently they met at her gym 3 months earlier. According to the messages, it became physical almost immediately. Reading those texts felt like getting stabbed repeatedly. I still remember random lines from them because my brain burned them into memory. She's asleep beside me and I'm wishing it was you. I hate going home to him. You're the best sex I've ever had. That last one almost made me black out. There were pictures too. Not fully explicit, but enough that I immediately threw the iPad onto the couch like it physically burned me. I honestly couldn't breathe for a minute. 10 years together. And she was talking about me like I was some annoying roommate trapping her from her real life. The worst part wasn't even the sex. It was how cruel she sounded. Mocking me for being predictable. Laughing about how easy it was to manipulate me whenever I got suspicious. Telling him I was emotionally needy. Meanwhile I was sitting at home thinking our marriage was struggling because of stress. I barely slept that night. I just sat in the dark scrolling through messages like some masochist destroying himself on purpose. And then I found something that made everything even worse. She never went to Chicago. Eric sent her a message saying, "Hotel is booked. Hurry up." She replied, "Leaving now. Told my husband it's a work trip lol." That lol shattered something inside me. Not anger. Not even sadness yet. Humiliation. Pure humiliation. At around 3 a.m. I started throwing up in the bathroom. I wish I could say I handled it calmly and strategically, but the truth is I completely fell apart. I cried harder than I ever have in my adult life. I kept thinking about all the moments I defended her to friends. All the times I blamed myself for our problems. All the nights she picked fights just so she'd have an excuse to leave the house afterward. Suddenly every weird moment over the past few months made sense. And then, because apparently the universe wasn't done humiliating me, her mother called me the next morning. Completely casual. Did she make it to Chicago okay? I almost laughed. Instead I said yes. Then her mom added. She forgot her birthday gift here. Can you remind her? Birthday gift. My wife's birthday was next week. Meaning she lied to literally everyone. Not just me. I hung up and just stared at the wall for a solid 10 minutes wondering who the hell I had actually married. The next 2 days were absolute hell. She kept texting me like everything was normal. Meeting ran late. Miss you. Hotel food sucks. Meanwhile I was staring at messages between her and Eric talking about sex in some downtown hotel suite. Every text from her made me feel physically sick. What really messed me up was how easy lying seemed for her. No guilt. No hesitation. She switched between loving wife and cheating on me like flipping a light switch. At one point she FaceTimed me from the hotel bathroom. The hotel bathroom. I could literally hear a man coughing faintly in the background while she smiled at me and asked about the dog. I remember just staring at her face thinking, "Who are you?" But I still didn't confront her. Part of me wanted more proof. Another part of me was terrified that once I said the words out loud, my marriage would officially be dead. So instead I did something I'm not proud of. I kept reading everything. The iPad synced constantly, so every new message appeared automatically. That's how I found out she wasn't just cheating with Eric. There was another guy too. A coworker named Daniel. Apparently that affair happened months before Eric. And based on the messages, she ended things with Daniel because he got too attached. I actually laughed when I read that. Too attached. Meanwhile she was married. The more I uncovered, the more my entire relationship started feeling fake. There were timestamps from nights she told me she was staying late at work while she was actually in Daniel's apartment. Pictures sent while sitting in our guest room. Messages to friends making fun of how clueless I was. One of her friends literally replied, "Honestly, it's scary how much he trusts you." And my wife answered, "I know, LOL." That one hurt almost more than the cheating itself. Because it made me realize this wasn't a mistake. It was entertainment for them. By the time she came home from her work trip, I felt numb. I heard her pull into the driveway and my heart started pounding so hard I thought I might faint. She walked inside acting completely normal. "Hey babe. Babe." She kissed my cheek. I can still remember the smell of her perfume mixed with hotel soap, and it nearly made me lose it right there. Then she handed me a stupid airport souvenir keychain. An airport souvenir. From a trip she never even took. I just stared at it in my hand while she rambled about fake meetings and fake coworkers and fake traffic delays. The lying was almost impressive. Then came the moment that finally broke me. She sat beside me on the couch and started complaining about how exhausted she was from traveling. And without even thinking, I asked, "How was Eric?" Silence. Pure silence. It honestly looked like all the blood drained from her face at once. For maybe 3 seconds she froze completely. Then she switched instantly to anger. "What the hell are you talking about?" That answer alone told me everything. Not confusion. No asking who Eric was. Straight to aggression. I asked again. Calmly this time. "How was the hotel?" She stood up immediately. "You went through my stuff." There it was. Not apology. Not remorse. Just outrage that she got caught. I told her about the iPad. And suddenly she exploded. Calling me invasive. Toxic. Psychotic. Controlling. At one point she actually screamed, "You violated my privacy." I remember staring at her thinking, "You cheated on me with multiple men and somehow I'm the villain here." Then came the trickle-truthing. First she claimed Eric was just a friend. Then when I mentioned the messages, suddenly it was only emotional. Then after I brought up the hotel, she admitted they kissed. Then after I mentioned pictures, suddenly they slept together once. I already knew it was dozens of times. She kept lying even after being caught. That was the craziest part. And then she said something I'll probably remember for the rest of my life. She looked me dead in the eyes and said, "If you had paid more attention to me, this never would have happened." That sentence flipped something inside me instantly. All the sadness disappeared for a second. All the self-blame too. Because I realized she was never going to take responsibility for any of this. After she blamed me for her cheating, the argument turned nuclear. I asked her how long it had really been going on. She crossed her arms and immediately got defensive again. Why does it matter? That response hit harder than I expected. Because normal people don't answer like that when they hurt someone they supposedly love. I kept pushing. Finally she admitted the affair with Eric started around 4 months ago. Which was interesting because the messages on the iPad went back almost 7 months. So she was still lying while standing in our living room surrounded by proof. I pointed that out. And she snapped. Fine. You want the truth so bad? Yes, it started earlier. Happy now? Happy. Like this was somehow an inconvenience for her. At some point during the fight, she suddenly started crying. Real tears too. For a split second I almost felt bad. Then she said, I didn't mean for this to happen. And honestly, that made me angrier. Because affairs don't just accidentally happen for months with multiple men. You choose them repeatedly. Every text. Every hotel. Every lie. Every fake work trip. That's not a mistake. That's a lifestyle. I asked if she ever planned to tell me. She hesitated too long before answering. That silence was the answer. Then she admitted something that completely blindsided me. Eric apparently knew she was married from the beginning. Not only that, he liked it. According to her, he thought it was hot. I felt disgusting hearing that. Like my entire marriage had become some joke between strangers. And then somehow things got even worse. While we were arguing, her phone started ringing. Eric. Right there. Right in front of me. I looked at the screen. She looked at the screen. The room went completely silent. And this woman, my wife of 6 years, actually had the audacity to decline the call and say, "This is exactly why I needed space from you." I genuinely thought I misheard her. Space? Space? You were sleeping with 2 other men. I started laughing. Like full-on exhausted, angry laughter. That seemed to scare her more than yelling did. Then her phone buzzed again. Another message from Eric popped up on the lock screen. Miss your body already. I'll never forget how quickly she grabbed the phone after that. But it was too late. At that point something in me emotionally disconnected. Like a switch flipped off. I suddenly felt calm. Not okay. Not healed. Just, done. I told her to leave. Immediately. At first she refused. This is my house too. Then she started trying a completely different approach. Crying harder. Saying she loved me. Saying she was confused. Saying she'd cut him off. The sudden personality change was insane. An hour earlier I was controlling and paranoid. Now suddenly I was the love of her life again. I asked one question. Did you ever use protection? She went quiet. That silence punched me harder than anything else that night. I remember physically stepping backward from her. Like my body reacted before my brain did. She started saying something about how it wasn't always unsafe, and I honestly stopped listening after that. I felt numb. Completely numb. I told her again to get out. This time she packed a bag while muttering under her breath about me overreacting. Overreacting. To discovering multiple affairs. Before leaving, she turned around at the front door and said, "You're throwing away 10 years over one mistake." One mistake. I almost couldn't process how detached from reality she sounded. After she left, the house became painfully quiet. And that silence destroyed me more than the screaming did. Because for the first time since I met her, I was completely alone in our home. I walked into the bedroom and saw her shampoo in the shower, her clothes on the chair, her coffee mug beside the bed. Normal married couple stuff. But now every object felt fake. Like props from a relationship that never actually existed. I ended up sleeping on the living room floor with the dog because I couldn't handle being in our bed. At around 4 a.m., my phone buzzed. A text from her. I hope one day you realize you weren't perfect either. The next morning I woke up feeling like I had been hit by a truck. My chest hurt. My head hurt. Even breathing felt exhausting. For a few seconds after opening my eyes, I forgot everything. Then I saw her wedding photo on the wall across the room. And it all came crashing back instantly. I called off work and told my boss there was a family emergency. Technically true. I spent most of the morning just sitting in silence with coffee going cold beside me while the dog kept looking toward the front door waiting for her to come home. That absolutely wrecked me. Then my phone started exploding. Texts from her. At first they sounded apologetic. I'm sorry. I never wanted to hurt you. I love you. Then, literally 20 minutes later, the tone changed completely. You went through my private messages. You humiliated me. You should have talked to me before invading my privacy. It was emotional whiplash. I showed the messages to my best friend Mark because I genuinely started questioning my own sanity at that point. His response. Dude, she's manipulating the hell out of you. Hearing someone else say it out loud hit hard. Because deep down I already knew. Still, part of me kept hoping there was some explanation that would magically make this less horrible. That illusion died later that afternoon. Her sister called me. And before anyone asks, no, her sister and I were never especially close. But she sounded nervous immediately. She asked if my wife was with me. I said no. Then there was this long awkward silence before she quietly said. She told the family you became aggressive and threw her out during an argument. I honestly couldn't even speak for a second. Aggressive? I hadn't touched her. I barely even raised my voice. Apparently my wife told everyone we were having problems because I'd become emotionally controlling and paranoid. According to her version, she left because she felt unsafe. Unsafe. Meanwhile SHE was the one cheating with multiple men while gaslighting me for months. That was the moment I realized this situation could get much uglier than I expected. Because cheating is one thing. But rewriting reality to make yourself the victim? That's something else entirely. I ended up sending her sister screenshots from the iPad. Not explicit ones. Just enough to prove the affair existed. Her sister responded with, "Oh my God." Then nothing for almost an hour. Finally she texted again. "She told us you made all of this up because you were jealous." That sentence genuinely scared me. Not because I believed her. But because I realized how easily she lied to people without hesitation. And suddenly dozens of moments from our relationship started replaying in my head differently. Arguments where friends mysteriously took her side. Times people looked at me strangely after private fights. Even conflicts with her family. Now I wondered how many stories she had twisted over the years. That night she showed up unexpectedly. No warning. No text. I heard keys at the front door and my entire body tensed instantly. She walked in crying. Actual movie-style crying. Mascara ruined. Shaking voice. Barely able to breathe. If this had happened a week earlier, I probably would have folded immediately. But after seeing all the lies, it felt almost rehearsed. She hugged me before I could react. "I don't want to lose you." And God help me, part of me still wanted to believe her. That's the sick part about betrayal. Even after everything, your brain keeps searching for the version of the person you loved. She kept apologizing over and over. Said she'd block Eric. Said she'd quit the gym. Said she'd go to therapy. Then came the real bombshell. "There's something else I need to tell you." My stomach dropped instantly. At that point I felt like every conversation with her uncovered a new nightmare. And somehow, I was right. The second she said, "There's something else," I felt cold all over. Like my body already knew whatever came next was going to ruin me even more. She sat on the couch staring at the floor while twisting her wedding ring around her finger. Then she quietly said, "Eric's wife contacted me." I blinked at her. What? Apparently Eric was married too. Of course he was. Because why wouldn't this situation get even more dysfunctional? She told me Eric's wife found messages on his Apple Watch and completely lost it. According to my wife, she threatened to expose everything publicly if they didn't end the affair immediately. And then my wife said something that made my skin crawl. She called me pathetic. No remorse in her voice. No shame. Just anger that another woman insulted her. I asked if the affair was over. She hesitated. Again. Always the hesitation. Finally she muttered. "We said we'd stop talking." Not, "we stopped." We said we'd stop. Huge difference. I asked to see her phone. That's when the mask slipped again instantly. No. Just flat out no. I stared at her. "You want me to consider saving this marriage and you won't even show me your phone?" She rolled her eyes dramatically. "Because you're obsessed now." Obsessed. That word made something inside me snap again. I told her to leave. Immediately. Again. This time she got angry fast. "You think you're so innocent?" she shouted. And then she started unloading months, maybe years, of hidden resentment all at once. Apparently I worked too much. Apparently I didn't compliment her enough. Apparently I wasn't emotionally available. Apparently married life with me felt boring. It was surreal hearing this list suddenly appear only after getting caught cheating. I asked why she never talked to me about any of this before sleeping with other men. Her response: "I tried." No. She didn't. She picked fights. She lied. She disappeared emotionally. That's not trying. Then she said the sentence that permanently changed how I saw her. "I didn't think you'd actually find out." Just brutally honest for 1 second. And weirdly, that honesty hurt more than the lies would've. Because it confirmed what I already suspected. She never planned to stop. She planned to continue until she either got bored or got caught. I asked if there were more men besides Eric and Daniel. She immediately said no. Way too quickly. I didn't believe her for a second anymore. At some point during the argument, she started crying again and suddenly switched back to wanting comfort. She tried grabbing my hand. I pulled away instinctively. The look on her face after that was strange. Like as if she was hurt that I rejected her. As if I was the one breaking trust. Then her phone buzzed on the couch. She glanced at it. Tiny movement. Barely noticeable. But I saw a panic flash across her face instantly. I grabbed the phone before she could stop me. She screamed at me to give it back. I looked at the screen. Message from Eric. "You told him yet?" That alone was bad enough. But underneath it was another message sent 30 seconds earlier. "I love you." I felt physically dizzy. Not because I thought she loved him back. But because suddenly this wasn't just random cheating anymore. This had become an entire secret relationship happening parallel to our marriage. I looked at her and asked the question I'd been terrified to ask. "Were you planning to leave me for him?" And for the first time since this nightmare started. She couldn't answer. That silence told me everything. She didn't need to say yes. The hesitation was the answer. I remember staring at her while my brain replayed the last year of our marriage differently in real time. Every cold moment. Every random fight. Every time she looked irritated just because I walked into the room. She already had one foot out the door. Maybe both. Finally she muttered. I don't know. That response hurt more than a direct answer somehow. Because after 10 years together, after vows and a house and plans for kids, the future of our marriage came down to, I don't know. I handed her phone back and just sat there numb. Then she started talking fast, like she was trying to regain control of the conversation. It wasn't supposed to get serious. He just understood me. You and I became roommates. Every cliché possible. At one point she actually said. You stopped seeing me as a woman. Meanwhile I was still planning date nights and buying her favorite snacks on the way home from work. Nothing she said matched reality. That's what drove me insane. It felt like she had rewritten our marriage inside her own head to justify what she did. Then came another punch to the throat. Apparently some of our friends knew. Not all the details, but enough. She admitted 2 of her friends covered for her multiple times. One even helped arrange girls' nights that were actually weekends with Eric. I suddenly remembered sitting home alone eating takeout while texting her to have fun with her friends. Meanwhile she was in a hotel bed with another man. The humiliation of that almost crushed me. I asked if anyone else knew. And then she made the biggest mistake of the entire night. She said. Honestly? People noticed how unhappy I was. That sentence instantly flipped me from devastated to furious. Because now it sounded like she was trying to turn her affair into some brave act of self-discovery. Like cheating was something noble. I finally lost my temper. Not physically. Never physically. But emotionally. Completely. I asked her how many times she came home and kissed me after sleeping with him. She started crying harder. I asked if she laughed at me with her friends. More crying. I asked if she ever felt guilty watching me trust her completely while she lied to my face daily. And finally she screamed. Yes, okay. I felt guilty. Then immediately followed it with. But you weren't perfect either. There it was again. Always redirecting blame. Always needing me to carry part of her guilt. I suddenly realized something terrifying. She genuinely could not fully accept responsibility for anything. Every apology came with an excuse attached. Every confession came with blame. Every tear somehow circled back to her being the victim too. At around midnight she finally left again after another screaming match. This time she went to stay with her parents. Or at least that's what she claimed. Honestly, by then I didn't believe a single word she said anymore. After she left, I checked our phone records online. I know some people will judge me for that, but at that point my trust was already dead. And honestly, I wish I hadn't looked. Thousands of calls and texts between her and Eric. Thousands. Some calls lasted 4 or 5 hours. 4 hours. I started checking dates. One call happened on our anniversary. Another happened while we were visiting my mother in the hospital after surgery. I sat there at 2 a.m. staring at the screen feeling like I was losing my mind. Then I found the worst one. A 2-hour call the night before we closed on our house. The house she begged me to buy with her. The house we painted together. The house where she swore she wanted to build a family. I realized then that the marriage I thought I had probably died long before I discovered the affair. I was just the last person to find out. The divorce process moved slower than my emotions did. Legally, everything was paperwork and waiting. Emotionally, I felt like I'd already crossed the finish line weeks ago. My wife kept fluctuating between acceptance and panic. Some days she was cooperative with lawyers, dividing things cleanly, talking about making it fair. Other days she would suddenly spiral again, texting long emotional messages about how we were supposed to be forever, like she was discovering the situation in real time all over again. It was disorienting. Because I could never predict which version of her I was going to get. At one point she asked to meet in person one last time to talk properly. I agreed, against my better judgment, mostly because I thought it might finally bring some kind of stable ending. We met at a quiet cafe. She looked different. Not dramatically. Just, smaller somehow. Tired eyes. No makeup. No defensive energy. For the first time, she didn't feel like she was performing anything. We sat in silence for a while before she spoke. I don't recognize myself from that time. I didn't respond right away. Because I believed that part. But I also believed something else. That she was still responsible for it, regardless of recognition. She continued. I think I kept needing validation from outside because I didn't know how to sit with myself. Then she looked at me and said something unexpected. You didn't deserve what I did. Not even a little. No, but. No excuse after it. Just that. It landed differently than everything before it. Because it didn't try to balance guilt or soften consequences. It was just ownership. For a moment, I didn't know what to say. Then I finally asked. Why didn't you just leave me if you were that unhappy? She looked down for a long time before answering. Because I still loved you. And I was selfish. That was the simplest, most brutal answer she had ever given me. And somehow the most honest. We sat there quietly after that. No more arguing. No more rewriting history. Just two people realizing the relationship they built had collapsed into something neither of us could rebuild. Before we left, she asked. Do you hate me? I thought about it. Really thought about it. And I realized the answer had changed over time. I don't hate you, I said. But I don't trust you anymore. And I can't stay in something without that. Her eyes filled again, but she nodded. I understand. And for once, she didn't argue with my boundary. That was the last time we spoke calmly in person. After that meeting, things became more procedural. Lawyers finalized asset division. The house was sold. We split everything without major conflict, which surprised both of us. No dramatic courtroom battle. No last-minute emotional explosions. Just quiet separation. One day, I went back to the empty house alone to pick up the last of my things. It didn't feel like home anymore. It felt like a memory I had already outgrown. Standing in the living room, I realized something that hit me harder than expected. I wasn't afraid of losing her anymore. I was afraid of how long I had stayed without seeing the truth clearly. And that thought stayed with me long after I left. After the house sale went through, life got quieter in a way that felt almost unnatural. Not peaceful at first, just empty. No more legal emails every day. No more unpredictable texts from her. No more emotional spikes pulling me back into the chaos. Just, space. And space is weird after something intense like that. Because your brain doesn't immediately know what to do with it. At first, I filled it with distractions. Work. Gym. Random outings. Anything to avoid sitting alone too long. But eventually, I started slowing down again. And that's when the real processing began. One night, I got a message from her again. Different tone than before. Short. I got a job offer in another city. I think I'm going to take it. That should have felt irrelevant to me. And mostly it did. But there was still a strange emotional echo attached to everything she did, like my brain was trained to react automatically. I didn't ask questions. I just replied. Okay. A few minutes later she sent another message. I hope this distance helps both of us move forward. That one I didn't respond to at all. Because I finally understood something important. She was still trying to process the breakup together, even though we were no longer together. Like emotional separation was supposed to be a shared project. But it wasn't. Healing wasn't something we could coordinate anymore. It had to happen independently. Around that time, therapy started shifting focus. Instead of just unpacking what she did, I started working on what I became during it. Because I noticed something uncomfortable about myself. I had ignored red flags for months. Not because I didn't see them, but because I didn't want to believe them. My therapist called it emotional avoidance through loyalty. That phrase stuck with me. Because it explained why I stayed in confusion so long. Not stupidity. Not blindness. Just loyalty overriding logic. One session, I said something I didn't expect myself to say out loud. I think I lost myself trying to keep the relationship alive. My therapist nodded and replied. That's often what betrayal reveals. Not just what they did, but what you tolerated before it collapsed. That hit hard. Because it reframed everything. It wasn't just about her deception. It was also about my boundaries being slowly eroded over time until I stopped questioning things that should have been questioned. Meanwhile, my contact with her became almost non-existent. Occasional logistical messages through lawyers. No emotional conversations. No late-night apologies. No confusion. Just finality slowly settling in. Then, unexpectedly, I ran into someone from her gym circle. A friend of hers I had met briefly years ago. He didn't know what had happened at first, but when he realized, he looked uncomfortable. He said something I wasn't prepared for. She was acting like she was living two lives for a while. People kind of noticed. That phrase stuck with me. Two lives. Because that's exactly what it had been. One where I existed. And one where I didn't fully exist at all. Later that night, I thought about that a lot. Not with anger. Just clarity. And for the first time, I didn't feel like I needed more details. No more digging. No more answers. Just acceptance that the truth I already had was enough. And for the first time since everything fell apart, I didn't feel pulled backward when I thought about her. I just felt, forward-facing. Like the story was no longer actively unfolding. It was finally settling into something finished. Not with revenge. Not with reconciliation. Just with a life continuing forward, without someone who chose to destroy it from the inside out.